Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Sarah Kelly Palmer.
And I'm Kayla David.
Welcome to Be Well Live, where Kayla and I come together every other week right here on Facebook and YouTube as part of an information series to discuss various topics related to how to cope with COVID-19. Kayla and I work at Family Service of Rhode Island as part of the healing department. We're a large social service agency that's been serving Rhode Islanders for over 125 years. We offer a wide variety of programs, including telehealth counseling.
So we will be joining together today and every other Wednesday at 10 a.m. for discussions that support wellness during COVID-19. Please take a moment to share this with your friends or to start a watch party. Help us reach as many as you can, or as we can, with this important information about being well during COVID-19. Now more than ever, and this is what we're going to be talking about today, it's so important for us to be able to reach out if we're struggling or to help other loved ones be able to connect with assistance if they're struggling. COVID-19 has put a great deal of stress on all of us, and especially now with rising numbers and being in the midst of a pause and kind of heading into a holiday season, this can be impacting us in many ways. It's impacting our physical health, it's impacting our well-being and our mental health.
Absolutely, Kayla. And I think our topic today is so timely because we're going to be talking about kind of beating the blues during the holiday season. And this year with COVID-19, it's really added kind of this new layer on holiday stress. So we know that for a lot of people, the holiday season in general can be a difficult time, right? Even without a global pandemic. So this year, we know that COVID-19 is just adding more stress in so many different ways. And it's really making the holidays look a lot different this year for so many people. We just saw it for Thanksgiving, right? Friends and families aren't really able to gather as usual. Some families have lost family members as a result of COVID-19, right? Or friends. Not being able to kind of gather together, and we've talked a lot about this, can really bring up feelings of isolation, feelings of loneliness, that for some are actually pretty common during this time. But I think COVID-19 is just shining even more of a light on that because we aren't able to kind of get out maybe and go to church or visit a friend. So it's really, really causing a lot of stress. So many are feeling this sense of grief and this sense of loss as so much in our world looks different right now. So we thought today, as we're kind of in the midst of this holiday season, that we would talk about how important it is and some ways to take care of ourselves, or even ways to kind of support our loved ones who might be struggling.
Yeah. So our hope for this segment is to give you some concrete tips to help manage holiday stress, whether it's your own or, like Sarah was saying, whether it's supporting others. The more information that we have, the more understanding we have, whether we're kids or adults, right? The more understanding we have of what's going on, and that can help us feel less alone. I think oftentimes we feel really alone in these feelings. We're the only one having these feelings. And, one of the things that can perpetuate that a little bit is, this idea, when I talk to people in therapy, I call it a highlight reel, the idea of social media, right? And people only putting up happy pictures. And there's lots of people now trying to dispel that myth. But oftentimes, in the pandemic, we know people are scrolling more, and then we're seeing all of these things that people are doing, and they might not have a caveat that this was 3 years ago that I was in, Cabo and without a mask, or I cried all day yesterday and couldn't get out of bed. But one of the things, it's so important is that the more information we have, the more understanding that this is a universal thing that people are struggling with, it really does help. And so if we can get that information to you, if you can get that information to other people, it does really help people understand a little bit more of what's going on for them.
Yeah.
And it's important to pay attention to the impact that COVID-19 is having long term. We're now at over 9 months of, at least here in Rhode Island, since we initially went into kind of quarantine, or we began I don't know, we're calling it a pause now. We began pausing, or we kind of entered this new normal. So it's going to have long-term effects, and especially, as Sarah was saying before, when we're coming up on a holiday season, when we're kind of looking at what we would, traditionally do this year.
Right.
So our first tip, to get to our first tip, is to do what feels safe for you and your family. So, and that can sound really simple, but many of us will be having hard choices this holiday season. Some of our friends and family may not agree with how we're handling the holidays, and this can cause a great deal of stress, or we have varying, degrees of how people are responding. Right. I mean, I know when I look at my family or my situation, there's lots of people responding in different ways. And so there's kind of we can think about it on a continuum in terms of kind of like safety and response and that we're having. So that can bring a great deal of stress. We know that, I know I'm tired of social distancing. I know we're all tired of social distancing, but then we're also hearing from the CDC, from the Rhode Island Department of Health and others, that staying in our own households and not traveling will help to reduce the spread of COVID-19. And right now we're looking at numbers that we've never seen before here in Rhode Island. So I think, the first thing that I would say is it's okay to opt out of your usual family gatherings in order to stay safe. So give yourself permission to have the holidays look different this year. And speak up about your needs. It's okay to say, I'm going to come, but I'm going to wear a mask the whole time. And I think it's okay to say, this is what I'm doing, and I don't want responses about it, right? I think we can kind of preface that for our family. And I think we need to have conversations. And I know last time we were on, Sarah, you talked about like conversations you might be having with your son.
Yes.
One of the important things is, even within households, we might be having different thoughts about how to navigate these experiences, or how to navigate social distancing or social engagement. So I know for me and my partner, we've been having a lot of conversations, and sometimes we might not be on the same page about things, but we have to be able to have conversations, and they might be conversations we never wanted to have with our partner. I never want to talk to my partner about not going to the gym. Right? Like, those are really difficult conversations where we might be more in people's lives, whether it's our partners, whether it's our friends, whether it's our family members. We might need to know more details about their life than we necessarily want to be involved, right? So I think those conversations are important, and conversations about safety are important. And that, I think, leads to, our next tip.
Oh, for sure. Right? So when we're having all those conversations, when we're making these really these decisions about how to approach and handle, holiday gatherings, maybe engaging with your faith community, all those traditions that come up for us, right? There can be a lot of feelings attached to all those conversations and how things are different, right? So our next tip is that it's really important to take time to kind of name and acknowledge those feelings, right, that we're having right now. So, we might be feeling lonely or angry or frustrated. It's really normal to have a wide range of feelings and reactions during this time of year, but now more than ever, right, with COVID-19. When you're having a great deal of stress, your feelings can also be confusing at times, right? Because the holidays are supposed to be a happy time, right? So you one day can feel happy, and then the next time you could feel really angry, right? That you can't go and visit your family. So dealing with that stress, it's really important to just be aware of those feelings. So slowing things down, right? So you can really take a moment to think about how you're feeling and really kind of explore that, right? Talking to a friend or a family member about those feelings that are coming up for you could really be helpful to kind of pinpoint them. The holidays also are usually a time of rush, 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 right? And kind of like getting ready and gifts and shopping and all of those things. So it can be hard to slow down to think about how we're feeling. And even though things are really different this year, I do think people can still kind of get caught up in that rush, right? So maybe you're
Mhm.
doing it online, but so really slowing things down and being thoughtful about acknowledging how we're feeling. And like I said in the beginning, there is this really big sense of loss that I think is kind of a universal reaction to COVID-19. Um, and not just, people have lost family members, but just the sense of loss of what once was, right? How life once was before the pandemic. So um, it's okay to acknowledge that and really, really think about that. Um, yeah,
Well,
which can be really hard to do, can be really hard to do.
yeah, and I think it's being compassionate towards ourselves
Mhm.
too, Sarah. Like some of these feelings, we just have to weather the storm. We just
Yes,
have to be mindful that they're coming. It's okay to be angry. Like
yes,
this is not an easy thing, and it's okay to be upset. It's okay to be sad. And I think some of the time people feel like if I let myself go there, I'm not going to be
right.
able to come back out.
Yeah.
And,
Oh, yeah.
and I would say
Easier
you
to
can't,
avoid it, right?
yeah, you
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
cry forever, right? Like that, like universally, you cannot cry forever. So like it is okay to let yourself have these feelings and just allow them to be, because this is a really difficult thing and we all are experiencing different forms of loss. I think, also like you were saying, we can get caught up in that hustle and bustle,
Oh, yeah.
and it's distracting and it can feel kind of good. Definitely if we're shopping, because there's like temporary kind of like
Mhm.
dopamine, serotonin, all the good things that
Oh,
come
yeah.
with having like a purchase. And I think one of the things that's important is when we're experiencing grief and loss, and when we feel bad for our kids or others because they're not getting the what is typical for the year, we can sometimes try to fill that, right?
Yep.
Fill that with presents, feel
Yeah.
guilty. And being really mindful and careful of like, there are other ways to show love, right? The love languages, if people are interested in those, but other than just gift giving. So being
Yep.
mindful of like how much, you know, like
Mhm.
I know for me this year, I like was very diligent. I am every year, but like setting a budget, because
Yeah.
I'm one of those people that loves to gift
Yep.
give, and
Oh, yeah.
especially around the holidays to show my love and my appreciation. And it feels good for me. And so with the easy access of, being able to shop online and with feeling like maybe we won't see each other this
Yep.
year, we can overspend, right? And so if you are a parent, being really mindful that those feelings of guilt, if we're not slowing down to acknowledge them,
Oh, gosh.
can lead whether you're a parent or not, can lead to us making impulsive decisions or decisions that we look back in January 1 and we're like, oh no.
Yeah.
Like
Oh, yeah.
that was a
Yeah.
lot of that was maybe I was maybe trying to do some, I was doing more than just gift giving. So being
Yep.
kind of mindful of that. And I think the next thing is, the next step is that it's helpful to try to manage our feelings. So,
Oh, yeah.
part of it is weathering the storm, part of it's acknowledging, being compassionate towards ourselves is really, really important. Saying, I'm slowing it down. I'm noticing that I'm sad. I'm sad because I'm not going to see someone, and that's
Mhm.
okay, right? Being compassionate, not saying, negative things to ourselves because we're experiencing a certain emotion. We're all in this together, or we might be experiencing feeling down or ungrounded, or we might
Yep.
be experiencing feeling, you know, like a lack of energy or motivation to do things, which can then make us feel like we're not enough or some
Mhm.
kind of negative thoughts. So being mindful of like, I think the biggest thing we can do to help manage our emotions is to be compassionate about the
Yep.
situations that we're in.
Yeah.
Um, and I think there's other ways we can respond, right? So we can get specific about particular things. So I know for me, I know there's lots of feelings coming up this month. So
Yeah.
when, one of the things that can happen is if we're not planful, these emotions can be there. And then when we're really distressed, we don't have access in the same way to problem solving. We just don't have access to our frontal lobe. We're really
Right.
emotional. So one of the things we can do is if we know that things are going to be difficult this year because a loved one's not going to be there because we lost them, or we're not going to be connecting with family in the same way, or we're not going to be connecting with friends in the same way, that we can kind of make a plan for what feels good for us when we're experiencing some of those emotions. So, it might be, for example, when you're sad, you're trying to reach out to a loved one,
Mhm.
right? And make a connection. There we go. Connection there. It might be when we're angry that we need to like take a walk or we need to write in a journal. Whatever works for you. I think the more that we can be mindful of, okay, these emotions are going to come up and I'm going to have big feelings. And when I have big feelings, I'm not a problem solver. None of us are. So how do I plan in advance? And I know for me, there's been a lot of things like, writing letters, like trying to connect in a different way, or watching holiday movies, things that bring joy and make it feel like the holidays, even
Mhm.
if it looks a little bit different.
For sure, Kayla. And I think what also goes along with that is kind of setting your own expectations around things and sharing those with family too, right? So like you mentioned being a big gift giver, right? It makes me really sad that I'm not going to see my family this year like I usually do. And I put a lot of time into those gifts, so I'm really sad about that. So, you know, I was really worrying about how am I going to make that up to everybody. And then I kind of said to myself, you know what? I, that I'm not going to do that, right? So kind of communicating that and finding a way to manage those feelings was me saying to everyone, we're going to do a donation instead. Do you know what I mean? Like, so kind of finding a way to deal with all that was coming up can be really, really helpful. Um, and I think one of the things that we can get caught up in this year, which I think I go up and down about a lot, is that, it can be really easy to focus on what we can't do this holiday season, right? And what we're missing out on or what our kids are missing out on. So I think, especially now, it's really important to be intentional about engaging in enjoyable activities, right? So, we might not be able to gather together with our friends and families. We might not be able to go to our kids' Christmas pageant in person or, to kind of do those traditional things we normally do. Um, but instead of dwelling on that, it's really important that we figure out a way to do things that are fun, right? So, right, and figuring out, so how can we modify them? The other day, my family and I, the other night, we went out and just kind of drove around and look at Christmas decorations. That's something we never would have done last year. I don't know why, but it was a really nice thing to just kind of drive around and hunt for houses that have a bunch of Christmas lights, right? So thinking about, are there fun activities you used to do, and can you kind of switch them up to make them COVID safe? Or are there new activities you can try? It can be really easy to get into this mundane routine of COVID, right? That we're all getting sick of. But I think the holidays, if we kind of reframe it, we can really, um, you know, have some fun, right? For ourselves, for our kids, for our friends and families, right? We can watch our favorite holiday movies. I know we kind of have a challenge of we're going to watch as many as we can this year because we're home a lot.
Yeah.
Maybe you bake. Reach out to a friend you haven't talked to in a while. We might have to kind of go that extra effort to just have some fun and to let that fun look different than it normally would during holiday seasons, right? So it's letting go of those usual expectations and, like you're saying, being mindful and kind of enjoying the moments that we do have and not dwelling on what we don't. And that's so, so important also for kids, I think. You know, um, Kids are so resilient, and I know I've caught myself thinking about my son and what he's missing out on this year. And then, when I really stop to slow down and think about it, he's having a great time right now, being at home all the time with us. So, just kind of reminding ourselves of that and making it really intentional to try to have some fun.
Yeah. And I think it's, important to like reflect, like you were talking about earlier, Sarah, that this is a time, no matter COVID or not, that people really do struggle. I mean, we have
Yeah.
less sunlight, so we're getting
Yeah.
less vitamin D. We're cold. I don't know. I'm not a person that likes to be cold, so I tend to be more insular during that year in the
Right.
house.
Less outside time. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I do think part of it is like no matter what, we during this time, it's good to try to figure out what does bring you joy
Yeah.
and to engage in it. So if it is that you're an outside person, like making sure that you and your kids are doing some of those things in a safe way, whether it's, activities or sports or whatever it is, because, that finding, having something enjoyable to do or something that brings us positive meaning, something we feel good about doing, and we don't have to be good at it, but it makes us feel good to do it.
Right.
And I think trying something new, like I think that can be really, really helpful. And it brings me to our next point, which is, our holiday traditions might look really different this year, right? Or we might not be able to engage in the same holiday traditions as we once did. But we can make new traditions. And I think, Sarah, you were saying like we drove around for the first time looking for holiday lights. And there are people that do holiday lights, like that could be really fun as a new tradition. I think that there's ways to do this. We can start, I know I'm involved in a recipe chain, like people are you send there's a whole email exchange to get new holiday recipes. There's ways to gather if you're, doing Zoom gatherings, or we as a family always did a Yankee swap. And so this year we're doing like a white elephant, but this year we are doing Secret Santa instead. And so we went online and did a name pick thing, and we're all either sending or giving each other gifts. So some people are in California, so we're sending them. But they can't come back. But some people might live less than an hour away, so someone might deliver their gift and leave it on their doorstep. But it's a way to say, okay, the extended family's not meeting this year, but how do we meet anyways? And so then we'll all open the gifts together on Christmas Eve. So there's new ways, playing games over Zoom, connecting over Zoom. Writing letters, alternative ways of connecting to one another. Another one that we're doing this year in my family that's going to be, I think, a new tradition every year is a few of the family members have done a house decorating competition that we're all involved in. So I don't usually decorate my house because, as I told you, I don't like going outside because it's cold. But yeah, I love a good competition, and I love decorating and crafting. So I was like, I'm doing it this year. So there's a few of us that are having a competition. And so we wouldn't have typically done that. I don't think any of us were typically house decorators before this, or light up your house people. But it's a way for us to connect. It's a way for us to do something new, have fun. And then we have a shared activity that we can connect about. Because one of the things I'm hearing from people is like, what do I even talk to people about? I just do the same thing in my house every day. They just do the same thing in their house every day. And we're not having any shared activities to have memories or connections about. There are ways to create, that's the great thing about traditions, is traditions typically give us memories and shared kind of conversation. So finding ways, whether it's gingerbread house decorating competitions over Zoom, or whatever it is that is a tradition for you, how do you do that in your family in a way that creates shared conversation? And I think that can make us feel much more connected.
For sure. You gave me some good ideas, Kayla. And I think, allowing traditions to look different. I think that's one of the biggest things, right? So letting just things look different. So I know that one of the biggest things that I need to keep doing for myself to combat stress during this time is a tough one for me, like you're saying, when it's cold and dark, is to keep moving, right? Yeah. So I just mentioned my family were watching as many Christmas movies as humanly possible. That's fun and that's great, but that means that we're sitting on the couch doing that, right? So we know in the winter it can be harder to stay active, but it's so important to keep moving and keep moving our bodies, and doing activities that help to kind of generate those endorphins, right, can be really helpful in managing our stress and our overwhelming emotions. So force yourself to take that walk, right? Or I recently have been trying these they're kind of like fitness videos, but they're dance on free on YouTube where you kind of dance and they trick you into exercising. But because I love to dance, I haven't gone out dancing in so long because of COVID. So, exercise, and I know we hear this over and over again, but it's such a good stress release. And it's good for not only our physical health, but it's good for our mental health. So that's a big reminder. And if you have kids, especially, right, they're being less active because of COVID-19. So they need us to kind of help motivate and boost them. So any family activity that you can do that involves movement is a really good stress management technique during this time.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many fun things that we can do that make movement fun,
Oh
or
yeah,
even, even if we're not like taking a long walk, like we are on screens, all of us,
I know.
so much more than we've ever been before. Screens aren't great for us. We know that. So I think one of the things is like finding ways to get off of the screens, right? And
Yep.
even if it's, or get creative, that uses a different part of our brain that helps release stress. So, finding ways. I know I've been following a lot of little things where people, make beautiful things with from going to like the dollar store and buying like dollar store like Christmas items.
Yeah.
So it doesn't cost a lot to then do something creative. So like the
Yep.
other day I made like a ornament wreath and it cost me like $5 and it was so cool because I got to go to the store and like pick out all my colors and I had to get creative about how I put them together, but
Yep.
it doesn't cost a lot to then be creative. And it took me like 4 hours. I got to tell you,
Yeah.
it's a really long time. So then I'm off a screen, doing something enjoyable and creative. And those are things we can do with our kids, or that's things
Yes.
we do with people in our
Together.
households and
Yep.
together. And those are, I think, those important pieces. Or, if we go back to way back in like April or May when we had Peace Love on, that
Oh
little
yeah.
activity of like drawing our family, right? And maybe that's something we're sending to family members. I have a friend
Mhm.
of mine who does these interesting like sketches of people. They're very abstract, and he used to do them at parties, and he would like make sketches of anyone who wanted them. So like sending those to people
Yep.
instead. I've been thinking about you, and I sketched this picture of you. Like those things can
Aw.
be really fun and creative and get us off the screen. And I think our last tip, is that it's okay to be struggling. This is
Yeah.
hard. There's so much loss. There's the loss of people in our community. There's loss of family members. There's a loss of traditions. And so, again, we want to focus on what we can do versus what we can't do.
Right.
But there is so much stress this holiday season. And our last tip is it's okay to reach out for help. And I feel like you probably, if you're watching these, have seen Sarah and I talk about reaching out for help every single week.
Oh yeah.
But it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to call a friend or a loved one. And I think sometimes people say, well, I'm going to just burden them with my problems. No, I mean, there is that sense of connection. We're all experiencing something difficult, and we feel more connected to people when they do share their
Right.
honest feelings about what's going on, right? I feel more connected when I say, how are you doing? And someone explains to me what's going on for them versus I'm fine. Right?
Mhm.
Like there's a connection in us being vulnerable, us being present, us connecting over hardship, as well as over things that are really positive. And so call friends and seek professional assistance if you need it. It is normal to feel this way, to feel really overwhelmed. It's also okay to talk to a therapist or talk to someone about what's going on. All of us, people who know me, I say everyone should have a therapist. I love therapy. I love therapists. I think it's just this really helpful exchange of just having a space.
Yeah.
And so if you need assistance, you call FSRI. We can connect you with resources. We can get you connected with someone, counselor over telehealth. You can always call our intake department at 401-519-2280.
And Kayla, I'm seeing in the chat that we have someone, Margaret, who's talking about a way, kind of dealing with stress is organizing and cleaning out their basement and storage and going through things and seeing what they can pass along to people in need, right? So giving a lot to charity. And I know that we've been really focused on that here in my house of like, how can we give back? And that's a great kind of way to channel your energy that's not on screen and can be a family activity. And she's saying it's helping her family kind of feel in control of things. So
Yeah,
that's
and
a
it
great
helps
tip. Yeah.
other families. I mean,
Yeah.
I know big brother, big sister will come to your
Yeah.
house to pick things up off of your doorstep. You don't even
Yep.
have to leave. And
Yep.
those go directly to other
Mhm.
families in need.
Mhm.
So, Margaret, thank you. I mean,
Yeah.
those are great ideas because we can also, I know for me, you purchase a lot during quarantine, things we didn't know about ourselves, right? So
Mhm.
it's good to try to stay organized or to try to figure out, how do I give back? Whether it's, I go through the Starbucks line and I pay for the person behind me, whatever it is, those
Yeah.
little things helping by kind of cleaning out before we know gifts are coming in. How do we make space for those new gifts that are coming in? How do we stay organized? And an organized space, it can feel really daunting, but when you wake up the next day, it can feel really good, right? To know where things are, to feel like things are in their right place. That helps us to be much more productive and feel better, even if it takes a lot.
Yeah. My husband and I were organizing not too long ago, Kayla, and we were on this roll. And then I kind of said to him, let's stop because I want more to do this winter. So we kind of stopped ourselves. But anyway, that's a really easy way to kind of let off some steam and stress. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Margaret, for sharing that. So we hope that our discussion today is just been a good reminder to pay attention to your feelings and what's going on during this holiday season during COVID-19. And to remember, we say this almost every other week, that self-care is so important at all times, but especially this year and especially now. So thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Please join us in 2 Wednesdays. I believe it's the 23rd. We're going to have a special guest, Vanessa Weiner, join us, who's the executive director of the Center for Resilience, and she's going to discuss mindfulness, which we refer to a lot here in this streaming. So please join us then, and thank you so much.
And be safe.
And be well. Thank you.